SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
State Treasurer David McRae is returning record amounts of money to Mississippians, whether it's through the College and Career Savings Program or the hundreds of millions in unclaimed money awaiting your claim. Treasurer David McRae says get your applications and claims in today. Treasury.ms.gov.
Oh, welcome to French Canada. We have everything a hawk could desire. Trapezes, trampolines, and lots of cheese.
Would you like a mustache? Just stay calm, boys. French Canadians are a little odd.
This is a trade war, yes. But Canadians are hurt. Canadians are angry. We're going to choose to not go on vacation in Florida or Old Orchard Beach or wherever. We're going to choose to try to buy Canadian products and forego bourbon and other classic American products. And yeah, we're probably going to keep booing the American anthem. But let me tell Americans, we're not booing you. We're not booing your teams. We're not booing your players. We're booing a policy that is designed to hurt us. And we're insulted. And we're angry, but we're Canadian, which means we're going to stand up for each other. We're going to fight.
He has passed a new law forbidding us French Canadians to drink wine. How could the French not drink wine? Travesty!
There's no Canada like French Canada. It's the best Canada in the land.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive.
I feel like we should just let this play.
It's a beaut, baby.
What a great way to start out.
Yeah. Monday, too. How about that? Rainy Monday.
I want you to believe me, baby.
Hey there. How y'all doing? It's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. My name is Scott Sands. Richard is off all of this week, and Lance is here with me. I appreciate you hanging out and all that you and Alex and everybody at the Super Talk team have done to help get me ready. I feel like I should introduce myself. I filled in for Gerard last week, and that was a lot of fun, but many of you have no idea who I am. So I'm doing the show from my home studio up in Toledo, Ohio, where I've been for about 10 years. But I'm originally from the Gulf Coast area and worked in radio in Mississippi for a long time, and it's great to have the chance to talk to everybody back home. I am in a home studio, and Lance, unlike Richard, who seems to be very proper, he seems like he wakes up early enough to shower and put on a suit every morning. There may be a couple of days this week where I'm in here in a hoodie. Plus, I told you this off the air, Lance, I've got an orange cat, and I'm really not sure what to do with Tiger. A very cliche name for an orange cat, I know. But the door to my home studio has so much stuff over it, I can't actually close the door to my home office studio. So I could either lock the cat up in the bedroom for 3 hours or let him roam around. And odds are, at some point, Tiger is going to make a cameo appearance here on the morning show. So let me just get that out of the way right now.
If I was at the house, I'd have Sunshine. He's one of my orange tabbies. He's as big as a Maine Coon. And then I got Butterscotch, so he's an orange tabby. If Butterscotch was locked in a room, that's all we would hear on air would be Butterscotch, letting you know about it. So I understand leaving the door cracked. And, man, if Tiger makes an appearance, he's going to get seen. And, he'll be heard and seen, and we'll all love him. But, yeah, this audience, as you know, Mississippians, they're pet people. So,
right.
You're not going to be in the wrong if Tiger makes an appearance and the tail swoops by. But, Richard has a lot of jackets. They're nice jackets. I have one jacket. Yeah. I wear it many times, and, it's not reversible, though, Scott. It is not one of the reversible jackets. So it's
a fancy jacket. If you can't reverse it, it's a fancy jacket.
Whoa. Yeah, but it is, like Richard, he does get up early. It is one of those things you kind of get used to it. I was messing with JT a minute ago because JT usually comes in and has like the last end of the 8 o'clock hour around 8:35 or so, and he's in early this morning. I was like, my man, I walked in the door and there was coffee made and lights were on. I was like, what in the world is going on around here? So,
I did morning shows for, I don't know, off and on for about 20 years, and it's a time slot you never really get used to. And I feel like Richard is playing a cruel joke on me, asking me to sit in this week, the week after the time change.
Oh yeah,
that's just additional punishment.
Well, that and everybody's on spring break too. You know, right. He gets to go to spring break with all the kids and the wife and have a big time. And here you and I are. We're going to be slogging through a week of awesomeness, having a big time. It is a little nasty down here, so if you're driving to work today, folks, y'all be super careful. It looks to me like on the radar that it's kind of like a northern front pushing down, and it's not moving very fast. So if you're in the Jackson area over to Meridian into western Alabama, that's pretty, where you went to school. That neck of the woods is going to have some rain and some stuff going on this morning, but it looks like it'll slowly clear through, and then through the rest of the day, it looks like it'll start clearing up. So everybody just be a little patient with the slogginess this morning. And
at least you didn't have the snow that we had this weekend.
Oh, you had snow?
It's actually still snowing in Ohio. It wasn't much. It's just a little dusting, but I think we're in the 20s still today, or 20s or low 30s.
It's amazing.
And then it warms up to like 60 on Wednesday. So the weather up here is just as weird. We don't get as many storms as
you get
we do
snow
for Mississippi. But we
March.
We do get a little snow in March. It's St. Patrick's Day is always hit or miss. It's either going to be 80 degrees or 15 degrees. It's one of those things that you never really know.
Yeah, that's it. You know how it is. In Jackson, they throw the huge St. Patty's Day parade, and almost every year you're going to have some rain involved in it, but it doesn't seem to really dampen the spirits because everybody gets to this point, and they're ready to have a drink, a party outside, to do something different than, hanging out around the fireplace or being rained on and it's cold. So, yeah, that's kind of the kickoff here in Mississippi, at least in the central area, is that big St. Patty's Day parade. Then you got March Madness rolling in.
Right.
Man, it gets crazy through March, doesn't it? And are you a Rockets man? I mean, given that you live in Toledo, I know you're a Bama guy, but I mean, are you like a transplant Toledo Rocket fan, or is there somebody in the area that you really pull for?
I always adopt. And, being in radio, is that me or you that keeps doing that?
I think it's you because I never heard it before, but yeah, that's new to me, but hey, sounds like
So I'll figure out what that is.
The gong show in the background. It's okay.
I'm not sure what that is. I'll figure out what that is during the next break. Something is, I've got a tab open that's making noise somewhere. But yeah, I've lived in Biloxi, Gulfport, and Hattiesburg, Laurel, and Mobile and Tuscaloosa, a bunch of cities, San Diego, Indianapolis here. So yeah, I've always tried to adopt a couple of teams wherever I live. I'm still an Alabama guy at heart, but yeah, the Toledo Rockets have a fantastic men's and women's basketball program. Their football team have been winners for the 10 years that I've lived in Toledo. Even going down to Starkville and beating Mississippi State this year. I'd like to point that out for Coach Gandil and the Toledo Rockets. But the Rockets men's basketball team is the 4 seed in the MAC tournament. They've struggled every year during tournament time, usually wind up in the NIT. The women's team has a brand new head coach. Their former head coach left this last year to go down to the University of Miami. Jenny Bodgers. Yeah, okay. I know where that is coming from now.
I love it. Little subliminal gong show that you better be eating your breakfast. You better
that coffee's ready. It's the C Spire text line. Whenever I get a text message.
Yes. There we go. It's Thomas says, sounds like good old Microsoft Edge. Thank you, Thomas. My least favorite app to use on the planet is Microsoft Edge. Not that it's bad. There's so many things you got to do. You're like, man, just let me open a window. How about that?
I don't know what it is. It says the tab says it's muted. I may have to pull up the text line on my tablet or something here to avoid that. So I promise I'll get that straitened out.
Today is National Bagpipe Day, and I did have a little bit of an intro on a bagpipe for us.
Get
over here to it. There's nothing wrong with bagpipes, right?
Let's save that for coming out of the break.
Yeah, man, we got some bagpipe day today, and and blueberry popover day. It's just, and then you've got Microsoft Edge working overtime.
Yeah, just to point out, I am not using Microsoft Edge. I have an Opera browser open and I have a Chrome browser open, and I'm fairly tech savvy.
And I'm not. That's the thing. It's funny that I get to do all this, and I'm, I don't even sync up anything. If I'll have all these notices and saying, "Hey, do you want to sync this?" I'm like, I don't want to sync any of that up. Come on. So we're apparently going to have that Opera browser sounder until I can figure out how to mute that tab. But what I did with Rhino when I was filling in for Gerard, I don't know if you can find this, but look, I haven't lived in Mississippi in more than 15, 20 years. I still get back home every year, at least once every year. And I've tried to follow. I've got a lot of friends in Mississippi, so I try to follow what's going on. But there are very good odds that at least once I will screw something up in the next 3 hours. That's live broadcasting, isn't it? I mean, that's the beauty of it.
I'll get something wrong. I hope our listeners will pronounce the name of anything. Yeah, I'm sure they will. Just have the buzzer ready. If I screw something up, if I say something wrong, don't be afraid to buzz me out. But we'll get into some of those scores as well as talk about the big fine that Ole Miss got levied by the SEC. State Rep Jimmy Fondren will join me later on today. State Senator Chad McMahan, and we'll talk about the strategic crypto reserve proposed by the president and what all that means. All coming up this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. C-Spire text line is open. 601-879-4395. Back in a second here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Chicken sauce, say they all know my name.
From the Venable.
Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Cutting down my rock and roll. He wants me to send a donation. He says he's worried about my soul. Now Jesus walked on the water.
All right, so
I believe that's true.
Richard Cross is off this morning. My name is Scott Sands. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media, the Scott Sands Show on Facebook. And, of course, the C-Spire text line is open at 601-879-4395. I apologize when you send a message. It's going to make that noise. I thought I had it fixed, and the Opera browser I'm using says that tab is muted, but it just happened again during the break, so I've got to go into, I guess, system settings and figure out how to turn that off. So
yes.
Just bear with me. I knew there would be an issue at some point. That was not the issue I expected us to have.
I expect zero issues all the time, and then I get super frustrated when there are issues. Daylight savings time was yesterday. Sistrunk Mobile Detailing, thank you. Hopefully everybody set their clock right, or their phone actually updated for them.
Right. What do the people of Mississippi think about abolishing the clock change?
Yeah, my gut from reading the text on is people just want it to stay the same one way or
another.
Yeah, just figure it out, stick it over in the corner, whichever one, and let's go with that. And I don't care, honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not farming, and I don't have to get up and worry about anything as far as, productivity like that. I get in the car and head over here to the office, and whether it's sun shining or whether it's dark, it doesn't really matter to me. So whatever people like, I'm with them, though. I think it needs to stay one way or the other, personally.
So I would prefer the extra hour of sunshine in the evening.
Sure.
But that's just me, and I don't know how it affects agriculture in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. I know that Cindy Hyde-Smith is a farm girl herself and is all in on ending the clock change, co-sponsoring the Sunshine Protection Act with Rick Scott.
Yeah.
She says, she says it's a hassle to keep flipping clocks, and she's right. And I think,
wow, okay. We're getting beat up on the text line. There we go.
I'm I'm going to close that tab altogether for just a second. Keep me updated on that. I followed. So I think there was a bill passed in Mississippi in 2021, 2022 that urged Biden to sign the bill, and nothing ever happened with that. I think it's one of those things where people don't really care which way it is. Just we're tired of changing. And I lived in Indianapolis for a few years, which was for a while one of the states that didn't change. And I had a lot of fun with that. It was very confusing for the first year or two.
That would be. And we have one great idea here, and it's from the 601. Move it 30 minutes and leave it. So we're kind of splitting it there. That's interesting.
That would be a major problem, but it's worth evaluating.
It's not 12:30 anymore. It's 12. What do we know? It's 1. No, what? I'd be so confused. I mean, just whatever my clock says on my phone, that's what time it is to me. And, I did want to play, we do have an intro here. Today is Bagpipe Day, so let me get you some bagpipe love. Make you feel good about yourself in the morning. You're a bagpipe man?
Because who doesn't love some good bagpipes?
Especially early in the morning.
It's also National Take a Nap Day because of the whole time change thing.
Yeah. We had and Blueberry Popover Day, so you can get you a Blueberry Popover, listen to some bagpipes. International Day of Awesomeness, so you can pull that off if you're and then take a nap.
I've heard you and Richard go through some of the stuff that happens in history. I didn't see anything that really interested me, but there was one thing, and this may tell you a little bit about myself. It was 28 years ago, 1997. That Buffy the Vampire Slayer premiered on Warner Brothers.
Wow,
I'm not sure I ever watched the show, but I did become a big fan of Sarah Michelle Gellar and Allison Hannigan. So that was the one that stood out to me, and some other birthdays, Olivia Wilde. Carrie Underwood, who was back on Idol, I saw last night. I don't watch that show, but I saw the commercials. John Hamm. Edie Brickell, do you remember her?
Oh, yeah, I don't remember why, but I do, yeah.
Played the hell out of that song, What I Am, Nana Cherry, Buffalo Stance.
That's it, there you go.
Sharon Stone, Chuck Norris is 85.
That's the big one today, honestly, that. And Osama bin Laden is his birthday today. The Palm Pilot was released in 1997, so, kind of that was pretty cool. Everybody had the Palm Pilot back in those days. And,
I would easily go back to the Palm Pilots.
People love those things, man. I mean, there was like a movie or something about it, and I can't remember which one it was, and I can't, but it was a good movie because it was very informative as to the Palm Pilot and the world and the development of it, and then obviously how it kind of went away because, they tried to get too technical. But, Norris, 85 years old today. What's your favorite Chuck Norris stuff? Is it the Walker, Texas Ranger? Is it like
I did like that?
Is it the movies? Because there's so many like Good Guys Wear Black and all that stuff. I'm a big Chuck Norris. Anytime I see it on like Prime or something, I'm watching it.
I've developed a new appreciation, I think, for Westerns as I get older. I wasn't a big fan of them early on, but certainly the tough guy image has served Chuck Norris well. Next hour, Lance, I do want to talk about the fines that Ole Miss received. We'll do that right after 7 o'clock, and I think when JT comes in a few minutes, we'll talk about how some of the bracketology is shaping up as the SEC tournament begins.
Well, we got the ladies, the ladies. It looks like the Ole Miss ladies will be a 4 seed in the Spokane 3 regional, paired up with Kansas State, George Mason, and Missouri State is what it looks like. And then you have the Mississippi State part of that bracket, same Region 3 Spokane, USC, Hawaii, California, and Mississippi State. So big names in those brackets. It looks to me like if Ole Miss wins their side and State wins theirs, they would end up playing each other as those two. One of them is in Oxford, though. You got the Oxford Regional, which is the one Ole Miss is hosting. Kansas State, George Mason, Ole Miss, Missouri State. And then Mississippi State gets a great trip out to Los Angeles. And that's where they'll be playing USC, Hawaii, California, Mississippi State. So that's that grouping there for the ladies. So should be an interesting battle there. Both teams in, and so that's great.
How did the men's teams do over the weekend? Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I watched 2 college games over the weekend. I watched Alabama, Auburn, obviously, and that came down to the buzzer in overtime. And kind of ties into the Ole Miss conversation we'll have after 7 o'clock. And I watched some of the UCLA USC game, and it was weird to see those two teams playing in California with Big Ten logos all over the court. I'm not sure I'll ever get used to that.
I'm not sure about any of this stuff going on, but it is sports, and we got to enjoy it. But yeah, the men's tournament basketball, as far as SEC goes, it'll get kicked off on Wednesday. South Carolina and Arkansas will play. Texas and Vanderbilt will play. LSU and Mississippi State tie up, and then Oklahoma and Georgia. So that's your first round. You get the bye also. So the teams that receive the bye will be Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Missouri, and Kentucky. So they get to wait to play the Thursday and play the winners, respectively, of those 4 games as well. So as we roll through this thing, it's going to be a bunch of SEC teams that will make the tournament, the NCAA tournament.
I think I saw something like 12 or 14 teams from the SEC.
There's still opportunities, getting here, whoever wins the tournament, you get the auto buy-ins as well. So, if there's a team that wasn't going to be in and they win this thing, you never know. So, up to 14, I believe, is still possible. 12 maybe is the baseline, and somewhere in there in the middle, I think 12 or 13 will probably be what we got to work with there. But, March Madness gets kicking, but the SEC tournament's going to be a bloodbath. I mean, there's so many good teams in the SEC this year. You hope that they don't wear each other out en route to the championship of the tournament here, because you got a lot more basketball to play. And this stuff, if you watch these SEC teams, man, they are physical. A lot of shooting, a lot of elbowing, a lot of pushing, a lot of big boys. So this week will be interesting to see who can come out healthy as well, because you got to get through that NCAA field of 68, isn't it? And so it'll be a fun.
It's too many, and they're talking about expanding that. I'm old enough, Lance, to remember when the SEC was a football conference. So
I'm older than you, so yeah.
And the baseball teams are doing well as too. Of course, my Alabama Crimson Tide, I think, are 16-0 now, but Ole Miss, Mississippi State always do well.
Since they had the mess over there, since you had the gambling mess over there at Alabama a couple years ago, once they got rid of Bohannon and went forth, I mean, this guy spent money, and it wasn't like Bohannon was losing. Alabama's really become a player in SEC baseball, and it took them a little while to take it serious. They've had windows in there. When I was in college, they had gone to the World Series a couple of times in a row. At Auburn, we went in 93, 94. And then went back again as I was at Ole Miss. So, those two teams, they're just not consistent in being there, but both of them have good programs, good coaches, and, Bama playing great ball. You look at the schedule for SEC baseball, and nobody's really played a whole lot of great teams in a row, so it'll really be fun as we get kicking this weekend coming, because it gets interesting fast in the SEC in baseball. You can be 0-3 quickly, and that's not a good sign as you start getting into that conference schedule. It can get away from you fast.
So quickly before the break, what about high school baseball? The high school basketball tournaments are over. When does high school baseball really get going?
It's rolling pretty good now, and JUCO is same. You've got the JUCO teams. Junior college has already played about 20 or so games, and it just. Right now, your best team in the junior college is going to be Pearl River Community College at 19-4. But heck, everybody looks pretty good. About half the teams in there. So yeah, it's full force right now down here in the South, and baseball season is upon us all over the place.
Mississippi headlines in just a second. This is Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands on SuperTalk Mississippi.
No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Richard is off this week. My name is Scott Sands. It's great to be here on Super Talk, Mississippi. JT Mitchell is joining Lance and I now with some headlines. JT, nice to meet you. How are you?
Scott, what's going on, man? You got me early. How are you?
I know, and I hear it's a busy week for you. Heading back home for a big wedding. Congratulations. Not yours, I don't believe.
Mine is still with me, fortunately. This ring is still on my hand. But yes, we are going to go back to Tennessee this weekend, live it up a little while. But in the meantime, we are covering Mississippi like a blanket.
So I posted a story that you had on the supertalk.fm website to my Facebook page over the weekend. And so many of my friends from Mississippi were so thrilled that you can now order wine directly into Mississippi. Why was this a thing? And I think there are probably still some counties or cities where you can't even buy beer on Sundays in the state, right?
That's true. We still have the wet-dry system. So some counties are wet and others are dry. For the most part, though, most places do allow you to buy alcohol. Every place allows you to enjoy alcohol, at least to my knowledge. It just depends on the setting. But yes, Scott, this direct wine shipment deal, this has honestly been one of the biggest headlines of this session. For better or for worse.
So let me get this straight. We can't get anything done about online sports wagering. We can't get school choice passed. We can't reduce taxes. But you're going to make sure to be able to order wine by mail. There has to be a wine guy in the state legislature.
I think there's a lot of them.
Probably.
But no, seriously, this is good for the people that want to get rare or specialty wines delivered to their home because it's no secret. So say somebody lives in the Delta and they drive to Indianola. That's their closest liquor store, at least where they get their good stuff. They're not going to have everything. And that's the same for a lot of places. But the deal is, if we're being quite honest here, Mississippi is once again one of the final states to jump in the pool when it comes to allowing direct wine shipment. I believe we're going to become the 49th state.
What's the holdout? Do you know?
There's always something. Hey, we got a text. That means we got people fired up about some wine shipment.
I thought I had it fixed.
But no, and it's this whole big ordeal. We have one of the most hodgepodge set, piecemealed together set of alcohol laws in the entire nation. I'd put my money on that, obviously not through a mobile app, but I would put my money on that. Our liquor stores, they can't open on Sundays. Some places can't sell alcohol in restaurants. Others can't even have a liquor store. You're now getting direct wine shipment. So I just think this is another piece of the puzzle, and maybe we'll get a few more pieces this session, a few more next session, and we'll officially be moved to the 21st century when it comes to alcohol sales.
I have a prediction. I bet by the time we get it all figured out, Prohibition will be back.
I'm pretty sure
it very well could be.
I'm pretty sure Mississippi took a while to ratify that as well. So
I'm not much of a wine guy. I do enjoy a glass of red with dinner every once in a while. I'm more of a bourbon guy. And for this week, I was very excited to find a distillery in Jackson that makes Mississippi-sourced bourbon. Cathead Distillery, I believe, is the name of it.
Right.
And I have a bottle coming. Hopefully, it'll be here by Wednesday so I can have some of it. Not during the show. That would be wrong. But after the show, so I can share my thoughts on the bourbon. We've got a horrible system here in Ohio. It's the OHLQ, the Ohio Liquor Control System. And as a bourbon guy, it's nearly impossible to find any good bourbons because when the good stuff comes in, it's all allocated. So every store might get 3 bottles twice a year, and there's a line of 50 bourbon vultures out the door at 6 o'clock in the morning to buy the bourbon. And that gets pretty annoying. They resell it on the secondary market. So
it's the same deal here. And you're going to enjoy Cathead. Next time you're in Jackson, we'll have to go to the actual distillery. They have concerts all the time, events all the time. It's a really fun place.
So the big story in Jackson is not about bourbon. Apparently, and I know this may come as a shock to a lot of people, it certainly shocked me, if you can sense the sarcasm. I know you don't know me very well. But there has been apparently a little bit of corruption in the city.
Just a bit of alleged corruption. That is absolutely correct. This is a story that we have been tracking for a long time now. I mean, we were expecting indictments, and they finally came in November, and then they said, we're going to go ahead and get this done quickly. We're going to have a trial for 3 Jackson officials, Mayor Chokwe and Tarlamumba, the DA of Hinds County, Jody Owens, and then a councilman, Aaron Banks, on January 6, 2025. Obviously, we're past that, and we have not had a trial. But, we got word, the latest update before we dive into a little bit of the nitty-gritty of it, we got word last week that trial is now, you're going to have to wait until July 13th, 2026. So that's a long ways away for trial to happen. But I guess it's better than the alternative because the defendants, their attorneys were arguing for December of next year. The feds were arguing for January of next year. The judge, he said, I'll just meet you on the middle. We'll get it done in July of 2026. And Scott, I don't know how up to date you are, how privy you are on this story, but everything in this corruption scandal is the makings of John Grisham's next novel. I mean,
it does read like a Grisham novel, and some of these guys are still in office, right?
Yes. So Mayor Lumumba is actually seeking re-election. This is a PSA that whether you vote for him or not, we have municipal elections coming up. April 1 is the Democratic primary and Republican primary for the city of Jackson. But that Democratic primary, or if there's a runoff, is what's going to decide who the next mayor of Jackson is. Councilman Banks, he chose, hey, I'm in the middle of a court case. I am not seeking re-election. He's not doing it. Jody Owens does not have another election until, I believe, 2027.
Yeah, it's amazing how they'll hold on to that office as long as they can. But as I'm looking through the details of this trial and the case, at least they were bribed with a reasonable amount of money. There's a similar story that happened in Ohio, in Toledo, a few years ago. We had 3 members of the city council here arrested by the FBI, and one of the members, his bribe was carrot cake at a fancy restaurant in town.
You got to be kidding me.
No, I'm not making that up.
I mean, it must have been some pretty dang good cake.
I mean, I've had the carrot cake. It's pretty good carrot cake. But that was part of the. I'm sure there was money under the table that they weren't able to find. But that's what they accused him of taking carrot cake as part of the bribery.
I mean, and this thing is a web, and we're just trying to unravel it. But reading all 32 pages of the initial indictment that came out, I mean, it's got everything from talk of dope boy money, talk of African blood diamonds, to yacht parties, to Jody Owens, the DA, when they raided his office. They found cash that the FBI informants had given him hidden, and I kid you not, hidden in a fake version of the U.S. Constitution. It looked like a U.S. Constitution on his shelf. Little did people know it was actually a lockbox with money that he allegedly accepted from the feds.
And they're getting cash in bags. I mean, it is straight out of a movie. This would make a good trial to watch, I think. And it doesn't seem like they're holding back any punches either in their comments.
Oh, they're not.
Most of them we can't even read.
The crazy deal is with the indictment, when, according to the indictment, when the DA introduced the mayor to the informants who were posing as real estate developers to build a hotel here in Jackson, he said, "Don't worry, Mayor, I already checked them out. These guys are not undercover feds." Little did they know. Narrator comes in and says, and they were undercover feds.
That's going to be a trial to watch, and I think that one may get some national headlines as well. Later this afternoon or later this morning, Jimmy Fondren will be on with us. I know that it was a big week last week in the legislature.
It was. We had a big deadline last Tuesday. And, I always kind of like to crunch the numbers as I go through the session just to see how many bills stay alive, how many are killed. And I brought a few for you, Scott. So we are 27 days away from sine die, which is, in other words, that's when lawmakers go home until next year. Back in January when they came in, you got a flood of bills. 3,220 bills were filed in total between the House and Senate. What's your guess on how many are still alive?
81.
Oh, you lowballed it. But still, 479. So around 14.8% of bills are still alive. We have deadlines this week, and I can imagine that's going to go down a few percentile marks. So it is a graveyard currently at the legislature, but hopefully the ones that do not see the Grim Reaper come in can make some serious change here in the Magnolia State.
So what's the one that's up against a big deadline? What needs to make the biggest splash? Is it the tax bill?
So the tax bill, because that's appropriations and revenue, you kind of have a little more time. Currently, we're in the stage where general bills and constitutional amendments, they're getting slashed left and right. But this week on Wednesday is the deadline for original floor action on those general bills in the opposite house. So the Senate has to agree to House bills, vice versa. And that's going to be a big deadline to watch.
When Jimmy Fondren's on next hour at 7:20, we'll ask him about the seafood labeling bill and some tidelands legislation. And also something I'm really interested in. The president wants to expand U.S. Navy and boost shipbuilding, which has a big impact on the Pascagoula area. So we'll talk with him about that next hour. Thanks, JT. I'm Scott Sands. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands, filling in. Thank you so much for hanging out. Lance is here as well. Lottery numbers from the weekend brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery. Lotto America, no jackpot winner. It's up to $25.7 million. The numbers from Saturday, 1, 30, 31, 36, 43 with the Starball 9 and bonus multiplier 2. I don't think we have Lotto America available in Ohio. We do have Powerball and Mega Millions. No jackpot in either one of those, either the jackpot tonight and the Powerball. $335 million. And it's almost at that point. I do buy Powerball tickets from time to time, but when it gets like above 500 million, Lance, I've got a group of guys from the cigar shop, 3rd Street Cigar, and I don't mind doing it, but it is a little bit of a pain. There's like 20, 30 guys that all will Venmo me $20, and I'll have to go into a convenience store and buy literally, 500 tickets that will. If we win the jackpot, we'll all split, and it's fun. But then, as the guy went in to buy the tickets, I have to sit there with the app and scan every ticket by hand to find out how much we have not won. Usually, we get about $100 back and can buy a bottle of bourbon or something like that.
That's nice. Like a little club.
Yeah, it's an unofficial thing. We have no paperwork signed. My attorney Darren may be listening. Maybe he could draw something up just to make things right. But it's almost at that point where I'll have to do that again. The Mega Millions jackpot, $256 million. The numbers from Friday: 8, 20, 48, 58, 60 with the Mega Ball 7, and the Powerball numbers 2, 4, 16, 23, 63, and the Powerball 13. The next Powerball drawing is tonight and Mega Millions tomorrow night. Mississippi Match 5, no jackpot winner. That's up to $458,000. The numbers from last night, 16, 18, 21, 25, 32. There were some winners from Friday in the Cash 4 and Cash Pop winners from all over the place. Grenada Man won $1,300 from a Circle K in Grenada. Vicksburg woman $2,600 from Vicksburg from a BG Junior. What's that? Like a 7-Eleven? I would assume.
I guess I don't know that one. The BG Junior.
Aberdeen man won $2,600 on a ticket from Sprint Mart. Pedal player won $2,600 from Murphy Oil and Pedal. A Jackson, Tennessee woman won $5,200 on 2 tickets from Blue Sky and Corinth. And a Marigold man won $3,100 on a ticket from TGS Community Quick Stop in Mound Bayou. So a lot of winners in the Cash 4 on Friday as well. This sounds fun. You were warning me about the tongue twister off the air. The $5 Pink Panther Diamond Triple Scratch Off.
I told you, yeah.
Pink Panther Diamond Tripler Scratch Off. Top prize $100,000, and that's not all. With the lottery's newest bonus promotion, you can enter your non-winning tickets into the Mississippi Lottery Second Chance portal for another shot at $100,000 after the game ends, and a bonus prize from $100 gift cards to $15,000 in cash. Next bonus drawing is Thursday the 20th, and you've got until 11:59 Monday night, next Monday night, to enter your non-winning tickets. Stay tuned for the announcement of winner cities and all the details at mslottery.com. Click on the bonus promo tab. Cash Pop, is that like a scratch off, I assume, maybe?
Yeah. I think so. I'm not the expert on it. I read them well, but
there was a $1,000 winner from a Freshley's Market in Aberdeen, a $1,200 ticket. One from the Laxmi Tobacco and Beer Store in Byhalia.
There you go. That's right.
Jackson man won $2,500 on the ticket from Citgo in Jackson. Look, when I was asked if I wanted to sit in, one of the things your boss Will and I talked about was you're from Mississippi. You know how to pronounce these cities, right?
More or less, huh?
Every once in a while, one will pop up that I'm not necessarily familiar with.
It happens, and there's a lot of communities that have grown in Mississippi over the years too that are named things, and I'll look them up when I don't know them. I'm like, oh man, where's that? I got to know where that is.
It's the Gaucher and the Saucher of the world.
That's a tough one, especially when they're back to back.
Right.
Yeah, Richard nailed it one day. There was a Gaucher and a Gaucher and a Saucher, and they're like back to back. I'm like, man, that's execution. There, he's a pro.
So I forget. I think there was somebody. Maybe it was Jim Ladner or somebody that I was going to try to get on the show from the Kill, and I was going to impress by knowing how to get that one right.
Kiln, Mississippi, right? That's the Brett Favre area.
That's the Brett Favre area.
You had a big winner out there with a Starkville man on the $10 Win It All from Moorland. That's where he purchased the ticket. $200,000 in the pocket. And my favorite here, we've had this one before, a person from this area, so they must come into Mississippi a little bit in the Leakesville area and shop at the Junction. But a Vinegar Bend, Alabama man. I've never heard of Vinegar Bend, but now I know from this show that it exists. Won $10,000 and paying some taxes here.
Off the C Spire text line, a shout out to somebody from a 205 area code who asked if there it is. Who asked if I thought I had it fixed. Who asked if I was on a morning show in on the Gulf Coast on a radio station used to be called Live 95. Yeah, that was me, and my buddy Darren, I think, is listening from Mississippi today as well, here on Super Talk Mississippi. Thank you for letting me hang out with you. My name is Scott Sands. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. Mornings with Richard Cross continues. We'll talk about the fines Ole Miss is getting and whether or not they should pay them. Next.
My master taking. That's how it happened, living life by the drive.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Shaping Mississippi politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk Mississippi.
Hey, oh, sorry once again. You want me to take you back once more.
Lance, you're doing a good job as music director this morning.
Man, I love the Kentucky Headhunters. My dad, when I was a kid, he would always blare it whenever they came on, and I was like, man, these guys are cool. Then you get to watch the video, and you're like, these dudes are clowns as well. They just have so much fun,
Need to have you put together a playlist for me. This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR benefits and payroll, you're not alone. It's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services and a custom plan that fits you. Call today at 601-206-7966 or go to MWGEmployerservices.com. MWGEmployerservices.com. I'm obviously not Richard. I thank you for putting up with me. My name is Scott Sands. I'm up here in Ohio, my home studio up here, but I'm originally from the Gulf Coast area. Also worked for a long time in Hattiesburg, Laurel. And if you've heard me on Richard before, you know I'm an Alabama fan. And I wasn't a huge fan of Lane Kiffin when he was OC for Alabama. And I regret that now. I have become a huge Lane Kiffin fan. And I want to get to an update on Lane in just a second, but I think the big Ole Miss story of the weekend was the fine that Ole Miss got slapped with on Friday from the SEC. Wednesday night last week, the Rebels in men's basketball pulled up a huge win over number 4 Tennessee, 78-76, and the crowd went wild. But apparently, Lance, just a little too wild because a few Rebels stormed the court before the Vols could grab their water bottles, and now the SEC is saying, that'll be $500,000, please. Third offense for Ole Miss. Football wins over LSU and Georgia already cost the university some money. And now Greg Sankey is wagging his finger again, and athletic director Keith Carter is going to hunt down the culprits like it's some sort of reality TV operation. So, in my opinion, I think Ole Miss needs to hold the line here and not pay the fine. And I know that SuperTalk's got a great relationship with Ole Miss. I don't stop me if I'm going to say anything that's going to get us in trouble, Lance. But I don't think Ole Miss should have to pay this. I think Carter and the rest of the Ole Miss guys reworked the rules well. They said stay in the stands, and most people listened. Even Sankey said it. The vast majority of the crowd behaved. But now everybody at Ole Miss has to pay for a handful of clowns, which is like finding all of Mississippi for one guy's bad parking job in Laurel.
It's ugly. It is. I wouldn't pay it, but I don't know what the repercussions are for not paying. What are they going to prohibit you from going to postseason, or what? I mean, what is it that is the penalty?
Send the SEC police out? Yeah. I don't know. And the money goes to Tennessee.
Yeah, that's even better, huh?
And they don't need the money. Tennessee is already number 4 in NIL cash, so they don't need Oxford's lunch money. Josh doesn't need a new cigar fund.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it costs a lot of money these days. I was even looking at a post the other day on a message board from an longtime Arkansas fan, and I'd sent it to you, where the season ticket price for 2 tickets had gone from like $20,000 to $40,000, and I'm sure that's in the donor pool type thing. But I mean, things cost a lot of money these days in college sports. $500,000, having that laying around, man, that'd buy you a pretty good opportunity at getting another player or something like that. But even as you said, in sending it to Tennessee, that's even like salt in a wound on top of it.
The thing I think grabs me most is a little bit of inconsistency on the part of the SEC.
Oh, they're inconsistent? Oh, wow.
I know. It's shocking. As I mentioned, I watched the Alabama-Auburn game Saturday, and Tigers fans started throwing stuff on the court. There were fans on the court after Alabama beat Auburn at Auburn's home court, and I haven't heard anything about a fine against Auburn. So are they only policing winners, or does losing with a tantrum get a pass from the SEC? I just think it needs to be a little bit more even-handed here, especially since the way Auburn handled it was trashy, whereas opposed to Ole Miss.
Coming from a Bama guy, I love it, yeah.
Right, which showed a little passion after winning a couple of big games this season for the Rebs. So
historic seasons happen so often, right? You go out and Ole Miss had a solid season. I think underachieved a bit in football, given the number of players that are going to be playing NFL football. Probably should have been in that field of 12. Didn't make it. Basketball's having a great season, and you had a couple of very big historic wins. And you really, to me, that's part of what college is all about. And I'm not trying to really, push down on the SEC there in that regard, but celebrations, that's part of the game. That's part of the fans. They've been waiting for this, and I think that $500,000 seems a little steep. $25,000, that sounds a little more reasonable or something. But $500,000, $500,000, because you won a game that you probably weren't supposed to win, and you've won a couple of those, and fans were actually excited. What is the SEC trying to do? Is, I guess my question is, enforce what? Not getting on the court? There may be a better way to do that. I don't know if the money really comes down to the fans that are doing that. They're going, hey, man, we just won. Let's hit the court. But then then somebody else has got to pay the fine, right? So
I think I've got mixed emotions about this, and I got a text from a friend of mine whose daughter rushed the court after the big win, and I'm sure it's an experience that the kids will remember, and they're caught up in the passion and caught up in the moment. But there's a side of me that says rushing the court, rushing the field needs to end. And I don't know what the solution is, but up here in Ohio, we've got the big game, Ohio State, Michigan, where Ohio State and my friends in the Big Ten love it when I pick on Ohio State, especially now that they're national champions. After they lost to Michigan, there was a big mess on the field, and it got kind of ugly. There were fights, punches thrown. Columbus, Ohio police pulled out the pepper spray against players.
Ooh.
And that's not a celebration. It's a brawl waiting to happen. And we don't need that to happen at the next Egg Bowl. It's putting the players at risks, whether it's football or basketball. You don't need 10,000 strangers in their face.
And that's the point. I think you've got to figure out that, right? And if storming the field or the court is not good. That's not what you want. I don't know if money, is always the answer. We always think throwing money at something solves a problem, but I'm not quite sure that's the answer to this one. And again, as you stated, it has to be even. Even Steven. You can't punish this group and then it happens over here and you don't do anything, because then why would I pay the fine? If they're not going to get fined, why would I pay a fine?
And the fines are ridiculous. Ole Miss is at $850,000 this year alone. So I don't know if money's not going to stop it, because the students, the kids, the fans, they're not being affected by that fine.
Mm-mm.
So I don't know if it's more barriers, delays. Somebody's going to get hurt eventually if you don't find a way to stop the fans from rushing the court, rushing the field. And it goes back to the same thing. And I don't know. I know you played ball, but it's like that post-game handshake in high school and elementary school after a big loss. I don't know that that's a good idea. I love that you're showing sportsmanship, but maybe have a cooling down period before the players meet at half court or at midfield to shake hands after a big loss, because emotions are going to be running high, just in the same way that fans' emotions are running high after a big win.
Well, Rusty, thank you for the update here. It says they don't pay the fine. The SEC holds it out of their share of the money. Well, even if that's the case, that's still a chunk, though, $800,000 for a couple of those. But always reminded me, go back into summer travel baseball. You played doubleheaders, and you'd play the first game, and then inevitably you had to go shake hands with a team you either just got skunked by or you just beat. And in the middle of the summer, and it's hot, and you're wearing polyester, and everybody's in a bad mood, those were some really heated handshakes as you would go through. Now, it's much more organized when you get into the college game and all that, but still, it's yeah, I'm with you. That's one of those, you're kind of testing things a little bit there with that handshake after a butt whooping. Nobody wants to do that. But, it never really bothered me that much. But, sportsmanship is something that I think even fans and players and all that, we have to always remember that you're playing somebody else too. You got to have respect for them, and hopefully in return they have it for you as well.
I'm not saying that we used to do this at St. John and Gulfport, but I've been told that there were some players who would spit in their hands before shaking Jamie Creel's hand.
There was all kind of crazy stuff.
I'm not saying that always happened, and why don't we see fans rushing the field after a big baseball win or a big softball win?
They're worn out. It's like 14 hours
limited to the two sports.
You got this big, you got the net in the way and the barriers of the fences, and everybody's been there for 5 or 6 hours. Right. Like, I need a nap, man. I don't need to go storming the field. But, hey, Ole Miss did have the big 2022 World Series, and that was a huge thing. But, you waited so long for that. But, you don't see it in baseball. You really don't.
I'd love to read your comments on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395, or you can send me a message on X. My X is at Scott Sands Media. State Rep Jimmy Fondren will join us next here on Super Talk Mississippi.
I pulled up to a neon sign on Highway 49. Shut the engine down, took a look around, then I stepped inside. I asked that bouncer where I was. He said, son, you're a field. Honky-tonk picking, line bands kicking, razorback sticking, barbecue chicken, laundromat bar and grill.
From the Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk Mississippi.
What else?
And always on the Super Talk app.
Richard is off this morning. My name is Scott Sands. How y'all doing? Thank you for letting me hang out with you this morning. From the C Spire text line, I saw a message about Keith Carter, the AD at Ole Miss, who I think is partially to blame for sending a bad message to fans. You're still trying to get people to come out to the basketball games, and now you're going to hunt down these fans. Got a little overexcited and rushed the court, and now have to pay the fine. I get it. You want to punish people who are doing wrong, but I think Auburn should be going after the people throwing stuff on the court, not fans who are a little excited about a big win over Tennessee. More of those comments coming in on the C Spire text line as well. And Lance, I warned you at the beginning of the show because I'm doing this from my home studio in Toledo, Ohio, and my home studio door doesn't really close, and my cat has been very good sleeping on the bed in the other room, but I just felt him tapping at my leg, and at some point You might see a cat if you're watching on supertalk.fm. You might see a cat hop up to the camera.
If he's got a mouse with him now, I mean, he's going to be famous then.
I apologize in advance. State Rep Jimmy Fondren is joining us now on Super Talk Mississippi from Jackson County, District 111. It's nice to meet you, sir. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Our mutual friend Jim Ladner told me it's your first year in the State House, and that you are sitting at the desk that was formerly occupied by John Grisham. Is that right?
That's what I've been told. Jim Estrada. He's my desk mate. Jim Estrada.
Sorry, I'm using his wife's maiden name.
I think he might have married a Ladner. There's a lot of
married a Ladner, right?
Yeah. But yeah, they're telling me I've got to write a novel, so I better get to writing.
What would your book be about, other than maybe the corruption in the city of Jackson this year?
I think it'd be very Grisham-esque. He has done a great job of painting the legal scene of Mississippi, so I think you'd have to keep that one going.
What's the big bill you're working on right now? Obviously, and the 2 or 3 shows that I've done here on Super Talk Mississippi, we've talked a lot about online sports betting. Is that going to get done?
I don't know. I don't think it'll get done this year. I hope it does in the near future. I think it's an opportunity that we're missing out on as a state. I think that you've got, Mississippians, whether they're driving right across the line to go to other states or whether they're just flat out illegally gambling. I can tell you, people are on books, people are running books, and people are using these illegal websites to bet, tens of millions of dollars a year. And, the state is, number one, not able to regulate it. And number two, not seeing a dime on any of that would go towards roads, bridges, and important things that people could use. So I hope we get a deal done in the near future. It doesn't sound like it's going to happen this year. I certainly support it, though.
Yeah, and there are some great casinos throughout the state of Mississippi that have some great sports books there that could do in-house and casino gambling, but a lot of people don't live anywhere close to a casino that want to participate in it. And if it's not available online, they're going to go where they can bet online. And there are overseas sites, backroom deals that you could do. And with a 12% tax on online wagering, that could be like $40 to $80 million for the state.
Yeah, that's and I understand, some of the fears are that this is just the beginning of iGaming. That it'll harm our brick and mortar casinos. People will just, play blackjack on their phone. And, I understand some of that. I just don't think that's the intent of the House that has passed this bill. I don't think people want to see that. I think people want to support our casino industry, and that this is something that, won't interfere with that in a big way. And so,
You can't get the all-you-can-eat crab leg buffet from Boomtown online.
That's right. We went over there and had breakfast yesterday, and yeah, you can't get that from your iPhone.
State Rep Jimmy Fondren here on Super Talk Mississippi. I am going to ask you some stupid questions, I'm sure, because being in Ohio, I haven't been following everything that you're working on in the State House. But I am a big fan of Gulf Coast seafood. We've got a fantastic restaurant up here in Toledo that actually, the guys from the New Orleans area brings in some Gulf shrimp, which I love. But Jimmy, this is awful. This is sacrilegious. His oysters are from the Pacific Coast. They're not Gulf oysters. And I know that some oyster snobs may say they taste better, but there's nothing better than a Gulf oyster.
I agree. We've been working to make Mississippi's oyster reef strong again. And I think the chairman's he's headed towards the right direction. I think that, for, I don't know how long, maybe a decade now, we have hardly been able to harvest anything. And, now there's oyster companies down here that are putting out a really good product. And, I hope we can continue to do that. I hope that the policies that we're putting in place, I hope they're, contributing to that. And, yeah, you're right. I love a Gulf oyster. I love an East Coast oyster too, but I love a Gulf oyster.
So what's the deal with the seafood labeling bill? What is this all about? How does this affect the people of Mississippi?
It's very similar to, and the approach that was tried to take is like our U.S. or our farm-raised catfish throughout Mississippi, you'll see, Mississippi farm-raised catfish when they're selling it. Really, it's just to clarify that, the product that we're selling is not only from the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but, we're supporting our fishermen, we're supporting our local industry. And just to be honest, there was a study that was done where just a ton of restaurants on the coast, surprisingly, were not selling Gulf Coast seafood. Whether they were trying to save money, whether, they were in a bind or trying to fill their menu up with whatever product they could get at the time. I don't know the answer to that, but I think that we need to be transparent on what we're selling if we're going to take so much pride in Mississippi and Mississippi Gulf Coast seafood. And we need to support, our fishermen as much as we can. And I think that this labeling bill is consumer friendly, and it'll help the customer know what they're really getting and what they're paying for is worth it.
So this is more for the consumer side. So if you walk into a restaurant, you know where that catfish came from.
Absolutely. The restaurants had some concern about, the cost it would take to implement that. And we did not want it to be a burden on them. So, we've done everything we can to just make it very easy to implement. Put a sign at the front, tell us what you're selling. And everything was trying to be consumer friendly, but also commercial fisherman friendly, trying to support our local industry down here on that.
Yeah, I got to tell you, as a guy that loves the coast seafood, I would be more likely to go into a restaurant that had Mississippi catfish or Mississippi seafood than something from out of state. And I would love to see the seafood industry be able to export more of that seafood to other states as well.
Yes, that's the goal. And they need to run it out of Pascagoula. We got the best port to do it right here in Pascagoula. So hopefully we can get that going.
What are your favorite seafood restaurants in Pascagoula?
I love Off the Hook, Bozo's, Brady's. I mean, all three of those are just great. You can't miss. I don't know if you've ever been to Bozo's. It's kind of legendary, but been eating their shrimp po' boys since I could walk, I guess. And Brady's is a newer restaurant, and the family has come in. They've done a great job with several restaurants down here. Off the Hook is amazing. They sell real good coast seafood product. Know the guy, know where it comes from, definitely. And Zach's is opening soon, so I'm excited to see what that has to offer. I think he's going to do a great job. He was the cook at Off the Hook for a long time, and I think he's finally branching out to do his own thing. So I encourage everybody to come eat some seafood down here in Pascagoula.
I'm trying to remember the last time I was in Pascagoula and where I may have eaten. The last time I was on the coast, I know I went to Half Shell, which has kind of become a chain. And I think it's called Table 40 or something near the courthouse in Gulfport. But Trapani's in Bay St. Louis was always the fancy place to go to when I was down there.
Yeah, I've never been there. I don't know if I could swing that one. Bay St. Louis, it's about an hour from us.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they've got some good places too. They really do.
So we're talking to State Rep Jimmy Fondren here on SuperTalk Mississippi Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. You're also in the Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Vice Chair. There has to be some important entitlements legislation you're working on too. And actually, you know what? I just realized that the time. Give me a quick answer on that, and can you stick around for another segment? For sure.
Yeah, we can catch it on the back after the break. But we're working on some entitlements legislation that that might have to come back in a later year, and we got some good things working in wildlife too. But we can catch up on those after the break, Scott.
Sounds good. I also want to talk about shipbuilding and the importance of the president's initiative to build up the U.S. Navy. More with Jimmy Fondren, State Rep from District 111, here on Mornings with Richard Cross and SuperTalk Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
It's great to be here on this Monday morning after Daylight Savings Time. I'm Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media, the Scott Sands Show on Facebook, of course, all of the SuperTalk platforms as well, and streaming everywhere, supertalk.fm. Mississippi State Rep Jimmy Fondren from Jackson County, District 111, here on the Scott Sands Show in for Richard Cross. I almost said the name of my old radio station, and it would cost me a couple of bucks. So I'm surprised I haven't done that yet. Jimmy, I appreciate you hanging out with us. Speaking of daylight savings time, real quick, any action in Mississippi to do something if the federal government refuses to?
What was that? I'm sorry, I lost you.
Any consideration in the State House to take action on daylight savings time if federal government doesn't do anything?
I don't know. I really don't. I'm not opposed to it. I'll more daylight for me is great, but it has not been a conversation, even if it is on a national level.
Yeah, I think I saw a text on the C Spire text line. Lance is a hunter. I used to hunt. I haven't been on a few years, but certainly would affect hunting hours in Mississippi when deer season comes around. No
doubt. Yeah, I'm not opposed to it.
I wanted to keep you around for a segment because Tuesday night in his address to Congress, President Trump announced a White House Office of Shipbuilding to resurrect the American maritime industry. And as you know, Pascagoula and the Gulf Coast, home to some of the nation's largest shipbuilding operations. We are at a distinct disadvantage numerically to the Chinese right now. These numbers may not be completely accurate, but I believe the U.S. Navy has about 290 warships and the Chinese Navy has about 370. Ours may be better, stronger, more powerful. We have more weaponry, more technology, but we need more ships as well to defend our country, especially if we're getting involved everywhere else. This could be a huge economic boon for the coast.
That's right. I went fishing Saturday, and we were, fishing all around Ingalls, the shipyard out there, and what they're doing over there is amazing. I believe it was last year they got awarded, it was $9.6 billion worth of shipbuilding contracts last year. I think that's correct. It could have been more, but you're right though, not only the amount of ships that are coming off that line, but I've got a friend that he's a Navy veteran, and he was riding with me a few weeks ago out there and telling me about the technology they have on these things, whether it was when he was in the Navy or new technology that they're putting on them. It is incredible what those ships can do, and it's special that we're building the most advanced naval warfare ships right here in the state of Mississippi. But it's not only Ingalls, now Bollinger's growing. They're building the first icebreaker in the United States, and I think over 50 years, in conjunction with the government. And, we're in a unique position with Wicker and his chairmanship, and he understands the importance of Ingalls. He was down here a few months ago. I saw him at the shipyard for a World War II heritage city. They were honoring Pascagoula for their efforts in shipbuilding, and he's all about it. He's all in, and I think that he's the type of guy that wants to see Mississippi win, and he'll do whatever he can to make sure that Ingalls is building Navy ships and nobody else.
Yeah, Senator Wicker certainly in a great position to help the coast and help Ingalls and Bollinger. What I don't know if you know this. What ships are coming out of Ingalls these days?
Last christening I went to, I think it was LH8, and I can't remember what all they're building right now. I saw a destroyer out there not long ago. I saw, the reason I remember it is because I had that new laser technology that my buddy was telling me about, which if you haven't seen is pretty impressive. But I don't know what's all over there right now, but it's impressive to go look at if you have the time to do it.
It's got to be one of the largest employers in Jackson County.
Yeah. At one point, it was the largest in the state, if I remember right. It's I think it's definitely the largest employer in Jackson County. You know, we're lucky to have a lot of good industry in Pascagoula. We've got them. We've got Chevron, plenty of shipbuilding opportunities, plenty of energy-based opportunities. It helps us a lot, and, you know, we're thankful to have that down here.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the energy output from Jackson County as well, because obviously with the tariff wars that may or may not be happening depending on what day it is, and the president's call for American energy independence. Right now, I believe Mississippi is responsible for 2%, give or take, of the American energy output, and that could easily increase.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that number, but that's great. We're lucky. I mean, Chevron Pascagoula is their biggest U.S. refinery, and so a lot of people don't realize that, but it's good.
We were talking before the break about the tidelands and some of the important legislation you're working on there.
That's right. I think that bill is very important to the coast. For one thing, I don't know how exactly I got into that, working on it as a freshman legislator last year, and now spending a lot more time on it this year. But the tidelands language, you know, when it was enacted, is very vague, very ambiguous. It has been open to so many court interpretations. And when the legislature passed this in around 1990, they made the Secretary of State the trustee over the tidelands lands. But what they didn't do is clarify that he has the authority to manage and approve leases and do all this. They said it's the state, and I think the language is political subdivisions, or something along that line. And, you know, we need to bring clarity to tidelands, and it's gonna help with our casino industry. You know, people like MGM, Hard Rock, we're not going to see more of those type of companies come in and want to invest. If it's a wreck, what's going on? Who do we get a lease from? What are we doing? And I think we have to get our stuff together on tidelands, and it's important to the coast as a whole.
So break it down and explain it to me like I'm a fifth grader, and why this is important to manage better than the state already is, and from an environmental standpoint as well. I mean, obviously the barrier islands have been damaged over the years by hurricanes, tropical storms, and the weather. But is that involved in the environmental impact as well, or is it mainly about money?
So the tidelands, they don't really extend all the way to the barrier islands. That's kind of I guess, you know, Horn Island, I think it would be a national seashore national park, but the tidelands would be, you know, something you could see from the front beach, you know, the where it ebbs and flows is what the legislation says. And, the most important thing is, it's unclear about who has the authority to manage all these lands, whether it be, you know, city harbors. You know, we try to make sure that we give the cities the right to manage their harbors in this legislation, with the tidelands lease. But if you're going to give authority to the Secretary of State to manage all the tidelands as the trustee, then it needs to be very clear that that's the office you need to go through to get whatever you want to do on these tidelands approved. And that's what the casinos are paying leases on. That's why they've got to be right on the water. So I just think that there's a lot of ambiguous language, and it's getting pushed right now, like you said, just to break it down for everybody, because of a lot of recent court rulings, how they're interpreting the old Tidelands Act, and they're interpreting it in a way that I can't blame them, that, you know, pretty much any government entity in Mississippi can approve these leases or tell you how much.
It seems to be a problem.
It could be a county, a city, the state as a whole, and we've got to clarify that. So I hope we can do that soon. But there's a lot of things I hope we can do. I hope we can get that through. I hope we can get, you know, mobile sports betting through, and maybe we'll get an income tax too. Come on.
That would be nice. But I think the tie lens is indicative of a much larger problem where courts are making laws where the legislature should be stepping in with some more clarity so that it's not being decided by the courts. And I think also, government in general needs to streamline the process for businesses to make the state, make the county more business friendly.
That's the biggest thing is, if I was a corporation, I wouldn't want to put my money in somewhere that I'm not real sure who's the boss to say, who's making the final calls. I wouldn't go as far to blame the courts one bit. I think that they're doing a great job of interpreting the law for what it is. But the problem is for what it is not clear, and we've got to clarify it. But that's a great point.
State Rep Jimmy Fondren here on Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. So nice to meet you. I appreciate your time. Send me some crawfish.
I will. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate your time.
This segment brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters. Next hour, we'll talk to a state senator, and I want to talk about this kratom issue in the state as well. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Trim the vegetable.
From Sumner to Summit to Summerall, Richard has something for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Everywhere on supertalk.fm. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. My name is Scott Sands. Thanks for letting me sit in this morning. Lance is here as well. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media, the Scott Sands Show on Facebook. Lance, how are egg prices in Mississippi? It seems to be all people are talking about when the economy comes up, but it doesn't seem like, at least in my area in Ohio and the Toledo area, that they're unreasonable at the time. They're certainly higher than they were a couple of years ago, but I think we all know the reasons why. Are you feeling the same impact of egg prices in Mississippi?
Well, I think it's around $5 in 2024. We've seen some costs up around $7 for a dozen eggs, but I go to a little breakfast joint and they haven't raised their prices on their omelet, and it's a good 3-egg omelet. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess if you're going and buying them at the grocery and dealing with it in that way, maybe you're seeing a pretty good bump. But like I said, I haven't really noticed a lot of the breakfast joints changing their prices yet. So
unless you go to Waffle House, which I know is charging a $50 or 50 cents. $50 would be outrageous.
Now I did
50-cent egg surcharge.
I had that. I did that about a week ago. That was the only place, but it's a kind of a mainstream. I'm not sure if the local businesses have changed yet, but Waffle House is definitely throwing that 50-cent charge on there. And I'm like, all right, if that's what it costs, if you want an egg, I guess that's what it takes.
Here's the solution, and I think this is a natural fit in Mississippi. And in fact, and I'm not trying to stereotype by any means, but it seems like maybe some business opportunities for chicken owners in Mississippi. Have you heard about Rent a Chicken? It's a real thing.
No, I have not, but I do know that living in Oxford for a long time, they were way ahead of the game. There were so many people up there that had the backyard chicken coops and some great eggs, and it was something that we were seeing for 20 years. Maybe that's coming back.
And chicken processing, I remember when I worked for a radio station in Laurel Hattiesburg, I would drive by, I think it was maybe Wayne Sanderson Farms on 59 in Laurel all the time. Every morning I would pass by that place. So this company is actually operating. It's called rentedchicken.com, and you basically do what the website says. You rent a chicken, and it comes with everything, a portable coop and a couple of chickens ready to work it out.
Wow.
That's
interesting.
And people are doing this.
Is it like a life insurance policy you got to take out on your chickens in case the cat gets them?
I guess so.
My house is like Looney Tunes. Yeah, I mean, I got two bird dogs and 2 cats, and I always get birds all the time. I don't know if a chicken would last very long, even in a coop around my place. So, what's the indemnity policy on that deal?
I'm not sure, but for $495, you get 2 chickens for 6 months.
Yeah, what was that, $4.95?
$4.95, and
Okay.
I've done the math on this. And I could be wrong. I'm certainly not a chicken expert, but I think you get 1 egg a day per hen, right?
I don't know. I
so
guess
that would be.
Yeah, if you play at Beethoven, will it give you like 2?
I don't know. You're 14 eggs a week with 2 chickens, so I'm not sure the maths there. It doesn't seem cheaper than going to Piggly Wiggly. But they're saying that this is something fun to do.
Yeah, right. Good
kids
luck.
will love it. You can chase the chickens instead of staring at Fortnite or whatever.
I guess.
And could brag about it too. I know that there are.
I know my buzzard out here, Buzzy. She comes back every year to lay her eggs, so she's laying eggs. But I don't know about buzzard eggs, but chicken eggs.
I asked some people I know who own chickens about this, and I was worried most about noise. Of course, I live in an apartment, so I'm not sure a chicken coop would be acceptable by the HOA, but it's the roosters that are making the noise. So there's no 5 a.m. wake up call.
You get a little
yeah, and the last girl I dated had chickens and had a very nice chicken that would run up just like a pet and was affectionate, I guess. If chickens could be affectionate, I'm not really sure. And I'm assuming that in Mississippi the laws are pretty lax. The HOA rules may be a little different, but you could always use eggs as a negotiating tool and call it diplomacy.
Yeah, well, my Mamaw, they were farming folk, and if there was a chicken running around out there, it had a purpose, and it was generally for dinner. And then they had some that laid the eggs too, but yeah, those chickens they didn't last long running around the yard. They'd be headless for pretty quickly, and a nice dinner coming. Right. So yeah, I'm a big chicken fan. I love fried chicken, love eggs, love the baked chicken, all that good stuff. Whatever you can do with the chicken, I'm in.
The point I made when I clipped the story was I did the math. I looked it up. 35,000 farms in Mississippi. So from an economic standpoint, it may make sense if you've got extra chickens to make this a business and ship them out of state or something. The Chicken Freedom Act, I don't know. Maybe we can get Senator Hyde-Smith on the phone and
can't imagine
try to make that a thing.
PETA will be right behind you the whole way. Those guys are like, this is wrong.
Oh, PETA loves me sometimes. Your thoughts on this on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. State Senator Chad McMahan, I'll get his name right, I promise, will join us right after the top of the hour. Fox News and SuperTalk Mississippi News coming up. This is Mornings with Richard Cross. My name is Scott Sands.
Morning, partner. The sun is up, the coffee is on, and you're starting your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Yeah, this playlist today has definitely been a banger, Lance. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, buddy. I love pulling them out.
Mornings with Richard Cross. My name is Scott Sands. Thanks for hanging out and letting me be a part of the show today. If you missed it earlier, I'm filling in for Richard. He's on vacation all of this week. I guess it's spring break or he's, fanboying with Ole Miss. One or the other. I'm not really sure. I'm in my home studio in Ohio, but I'm originally from Mississippi, went to high school on the coast, and worked for some radio stations in Mississippi, so it's great to be back on the radio and back behind a microphone, talking to a lot of friends back in Mississippi.
I bet Richard is buying a jacket, though. I guarantee he'll have a new one.
Could be. He's got a lot of jackets, you said.
Definitely. He's got the best of them.
Later this hour, Natalie Brunell will join us. She is an expert on crypto. I wanted to find out exactly what this crypto strategic reserve is all about, and I saw that Bitcoin has dropped about $30,000 in the last month and a half, so we'll get into some of that tomorrow in the 8 a.m. hour author Brad Meltzer will join us. And you said you're a fan of his, Lance. I'm a huge fan of his books. Became a fan when he was doing the show on the History Channel, Decoding History.
That's how I learned about him was, Decoding History. But, I followed him well. He's something else. Great guest. A lot of podcasts out there with him on. He's a brilliant guy.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun, too.
Kind of like McMahan here we got coming on. Brilliant guy, great dresser, all the good stuff you need in a senator, you know.
I heard you talking to him off the air, so I can't wait to see where he is. State Senator Chad McMahan from District 6 is joining us from a vault in the state capitol. You're in a unique location for everybody watching on SuperTalk.fm.
That's correct. So I'm here in the Capitol building this morning, coming live to you from one of the most unique offices in the Capitol. I did not necessarily choose this office. This is the office no one else wanted, so I took it. And I've done a lot with it. Just a quick tour. I pulled some old photos of some old trains out of the archives and had them blown up. And then behind me is the actual revenue vault where the money used to be kept when they still dealt in hard currency every day. So it's a great reminder to me, Scott, every day that I'm a guardian of the taxpayers' money. So it is literally a 5-ton safe sitting here behind me, and it's a great reminder for me.
That's very cool, although it's also reminiscent. I don't know if you're a fan of the West Wing TV show, kind of like when Ainsley got stuck in the basement of the White House in the steam room.
I remember the show, yes. Let me show you something else here. I've got someone famous from Mississippi. This is Chief Piamika, the great Chickasaw war chief, who he overlooks what I'm doing here. He's probably the most famous person from Tupelo ever, even more famous than Elvis Presley in his day. He would have been known around the world. Chief Piamika, the great Chickasaw war chief, who was personal friends with George Washington, and George Washington wrote that they would not have been successful in the Mississippi Valley without the Chickasaw. So it's a great reminder to me. Of course, Elvis Presley's from Tupelo, so it's a great place to live. It's a 6-time All-American city. I love what the Mayor Todd Jordan is doing in the city, and the aldermen there, the city council, they're doing an amazing job. 6-time All-American city, one of the brightest spots in the state of Mississippi.
Love Tupelo. I haven't been there in a long time. I need to get back.
You would really be surprised, Scott. There's not an empty building in downtown Tupelo, and there's $60 million worth of new hotels going in downtown in the historic district. Name me another city in Mississippi where $60 million in new hotels are going in off the main highway in downtown historic area.
So what's bringing everybody to Tupelo?
Well, Tupelo has a lot of assets for the state of Mississippi. The largest bank in the state is headquartered in Tupelo, Cadence Bank. The second largest bank in the state is headquartered there, Renaissance Bank. The largest high school in the state is Tupelo High School. The largest rural hospital in America with 12,000 employees is headquartered in Tupelo. The largest foundation in the state, Community Foundation, which is CREATE, is there. The largest zoo in the state, the Buffalo Park. It's just an incredible place to live, and a lot of things are going on in Tupelo, in Lee County. And I want to give a shout-out to my mayor at Soutelo, Mississippi, my Republican mayor, the first millennial mayor in Lee County, Mississippi. They have the lowest tax rate and the lowest crime rate in Lee County. But Lee County, Mississippi, that I represent, is the heaviest industrialized county in the state of Mississippi. 1 out of 5 people still work in manufacturing, building, furniture, building the number 1 car in America, by the way, the Toyota Corolla, built by Mississippians for the world and for Americans. We've got Cooper Tires there. We've just got a lot of assets, just a whole lot going on in Tupelo. A lot of things have gone right because of good political leadership since the 1970s.
I got to tell you, I am learning more about Tupelo than I expected to learn today.
Don't undersell the blueberry cake donuts either. That has a lot to do with the movement.
Well, now you're that sounds wonderful too.
He's talking about the blueberry donuts at Connie's Chicken.
Ooh, if we get Scott up there, he's not leaving Tupelo. I guarantee you.
I know it well.
I worked hard to lose 100 pounds in the past year. I have a feeling moving back home would put them right back on. Yeah. State Senator
Mississippi.
Chad McMahan here on Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. So you started off, and we talked a lot about Tupelo, which I love to hear. But I wanted to spend some time talking about the vault, about the money, and whether or not any headway is being made in reducing the state taxes in Mississippi.
So, Scott, I want to compare and contrast just for a moment the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. The Democrat Party is fighting against making America great again. The Democrat Party is fighting against traditional values like boys are boys and girls are girls. Let me contrast that with the Mississippi Republican Party. The party is fighting among ourselves for a tax break for hardworking Mississippians. Now, contrast that. We're fighting about what the percentage is going to be for a tax cut for Mississippi working families. That's worth fighting over. And I'm glad Republicans are having this conversation. One party ran this state for 138 years. The Republican Party has had every office in the state of Mississippi for 6 years. And we are recalculating the tax code. And we are going to reduce the taxation on Mississippians, brought to you by the Mississippi Republican Party. We will get this done one way or the other.
So I'm gonna plead some ignorance here. What is the state tax rate as it compares to some of your neighbors like Alabama and Tennessee?
Well, our tax rate currently is competitive across the country, but it's not as competitive as a lot of our economic teams want it to be. I want, and the economic teams of this state want us to eliminate the state income tax. And that's my goal as well. I would like to see the state income tax eliminated in a piece of legislation this year. And it may take some time to do it. It might take 8, 10, 12, 16 years to get the job done because it is 1/3 of the state revenue. But if we can start reducing the state income tax now, and we do it slowly, it'll give our economy time to grow. And by the time it's fully implemented, we won't miss that revenue.
You know, I could find you an extra $40 or $50 million in taxes on online sports wagering.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to online sports wagering. I'm not opposed to it. The people I represent have overwhelmingly shared with me they would like to see it, and so I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, and what about legalized marijuana? That's also a good tax base.
So I will say that Mississippians voted for a cannabis program. And although personally I don't use cannabis, it's not something I've ever used, I honored the people's vote in Lee County, Mississippi. 72% of the district that I represented voted for legalizing a medical cannabis product. So I reluctantly voted for it. But I'm here to do one thing, Scott, to vote the will of the people that I represent and sent me here. And that is the mark of a good legislator, to do what the people have asked you to do. It's 72%. I can read. And when 72% of the district supported it, I spoke against it before I cast my vote, based on what I think it's going to do to our next generation and future generations. But I did honor the vote of the people, and I voted for it.
Yeah, we're seeing some of that where I live right now in Ohio, which just passed it within the last couple of years. It's bringing in some money, but the state's obviously worried about the aspects of what it could do to society down the road. We'll have to dive into that another day because I know it's been discussed in Mississippi as well. Senator, are you able to stick around for another segment? I wanted to ask you a couple other things. I don't know how much time you've got.
Sure. Hey, thank you for the invitation. It's super to be on Super Talk on a super sunny day, and I'll stick around as long as you like.
You are super energetic. State Senator Chad McMahan from District 6 here. Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands.
I guess you're just what I need. That's what I needed. I needed someone to feed. I guess you're just what I needed. That's what I needed. I needed someone to
From the Venable.
Where you're from, Abbeville, Batesville, D'Iberville, or any other ville in the SIP. You're starting your day off right. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Juanita, my sweet Juanita.
My name is Scott Sands. This morning's with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. I'm joined by State Senator Chad McMahan. It's great to have you on from the vaults at the state capitol. I wanted to hold you over as Vice Chair for Business and Financial Institutions. In a few minutes, Natalie Brunell is going to join us on the show. She's a crypto expert. Has there been any talk in Mississippi about creating some sort of similar crypto Bitcoin strategic reserve? It's one of the things here in Ohio that they're considering as well.
We've had several conversations and bills dealing with cryptocurrency, and here in the state of Mississippi, we are treating crypto as a commodity and not as a currency. So yeah, we're looking at that possibility about what it might look like to have a depository for cryptocurrency. But as I've stated, it's a difference in currency and a commodity, and it's treated as a commodity. Just like gold and silver is a commodity.
I'm a tech guy and had opportunities to buy Bitcoin in the very early days, but the entire concept of it worries me a little bit. I know a lot of people who have made money from trading crypto, but it seems kind of sketchy at the end of the day, and I'm not sure from a position of responsibility in the government that you want to be investing billions of dollars into crypto and have it do what Bitcoin has done in the last 2 months, which is drop in 25% of value.
Well, as I stated, it's a commodity. I do not hold any crypto myself, but a lot of people do. They believe in it, and if it's going to be traded in Mississippi, I want it to be traded legally and fairly, and I want there to be recourse for the consumer if they're taking advantage of. And there have been some Ponzi schemes in crypto, as you know.
Oh, yes. I'm well aware. I'm well aware of some of the meme coins that have the Hawk Tua meme coin is the one that stands out in my mind, and the rug pull that she had on that, the social media viral girl who created a meme coin, cost a lot of people a lot of money, and she wound up making millions of dollars from that. The other side of things that you may have an influence over is any state Doge concept. We've got about half a dozen states that either already or are considering some sort of governmental efficiency department in their own state.
I'm glad you asked that question. So I serve, thanks to Delbert Hoseman, I serve on the Mississippi Peer Committee, which is a committee of 6 House members and 6 senators. And we do oversight. We look into government agencies. It's a committee that actually has the authority to audit the auditor if they wanted to. But in 2021, the Peer Committee sent a letter to the governor requesting he put out a letter requiring all Mississippi employees to return to office. We were doing that long before the federal government did it. And we have a bill now in the state Senate. It's sort of an omnibus bill that gives the peer committee additional powers. It gives them subpoena powers. It gives them the ability to look into more agencies, have more authority. And I'm for that because I want to be sure that the Mississippi taxpayer is getting a good value for the money that they're investing in this state.
If you had to put a number on it, how much of the state government do you believe you could cut? And how much efficiencies could be created with the city and county governments?
I wouldn't want to speculate on something like that. I do think there are some opportunities to save some additional tax dollars in this state, but I just wouldn't want to speculate. What I do want to focus on, though, is I want to encourage Mississippi families this morning. You know, Mississippi we have a balanced budget in Mississippi. We spend 2% less than the revenue that's brought into the state. We don't print money out of thin air like the federal government. We live on a balanced budget, just like Mississippi families. We sit around a table, senators and representatives, and we bang out a budget, and then we come to a compromise that we can agree with. But we're fighting to give Mississippians a tax break this year.
That would be fantastic, and also work to stimulate the economy right now.
I would think so. Yeah, well, whether it stimulates the economy or not, what I'm for is making sure that Mississippians have their own money. They know how to spend their money better than the government knows how to spend their money. And look, I applaud what Donald Trump is doing. This nation has been ripped off for a long time by trading partners, and Donald Trump is telling them to get their house in order. And it's going to be painful. I want Mississippians to understand and Americans to understand what we're about to go through is going to be some pain involved in these tariffs. We're going to see food products continue to rise. We're going to see furniture and metal and automobile components rise, which could add to the cost of automobiles. But it's the right thing to do to bring manufacturing back to this country and leverage our trading partners and let them know we're going to be fair traders, but we're not free traders, and we're not going to be taken advantage of.
Well, in the last segment, you talked about the manufacturing base that you've got there in your district and in the Tupelo area in Lee County. That could really benefit by bringing some of these jobs, some of this manufacturing back to the state, back to the U.S.
Yeah, and Scott, let me share this. We all have to put our money where our mouth is. I bought a set of tires about a month ago, and they quoted me several different brands, and I said, look, we've got 3 tire companies in Mississippi. Cooper Tire, which is Goodyear. Then we've got Continental Tire in Yokohama. And I said, I want some tires built in Mississippi, even if I have to wait on them. And I did have to wait on them, had to wait on them 3 days. But I bought tires in Mississippi. I paid $84 more for those tires built by Mississippians. Same thing when I go to my grocery store. 2 weeks ago, I went to the grocery store and purchased catfish. There was a product there from overseas. There was a catfish from Louisiana, and then there was a catfish company right here in Mississippi, Simmons Catfish. And I bought the Simmons Catfish, and I paid a little bit more for it. But that's the mentality we're all going to have to start thinking about to make America great again and bring these jobs home and make our economy strong.
It's interesting, and I'm certainly not an economist, but there is a possibility that these tariffs could actually wind up being deflationary because if certain items cost more, the prices might naturally come down. So we'll see what happens. I know that over the weekend on Air Force One, President Trump avoided talking about whether or not he expected us to enter a recession. But certainly I think the next 30, 60, 90 days as these tariffs are rolled out will be interesting to watch how the stock market and how the economy reacts.
Yes, sir. My message to Mississippians is buy local. I shop at my local grocery stores. I buy locally. I shop at local restaurants, and I'm encouraging Mississippians to do the same thing.
State Senator Chad McMahan here on Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. Quickly, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the week, Senator, the school choice debate has been continuing in Mississippi. Is there any life in this session, or is it going to have to be punted down the road?
Well, Scott, if you ever come to the legislature, you'll find out no legislation is dead until we sign and die and go home for the session. So I think the last day of session officially is April 5th or 6th by Constitution, and we have Constitution timelines on it. Nothing here is dead until it's dead and we sign and die. On school choice, I do support some public school transfers. I've looked at that. I had some amendments for the legislation in the Senate that has not been brought forward yet. I will probably support the legislation after talking with families and superintendents and teachers and parents. I will probably support it with some amendments. But let me share this. A lot of people don't know this, but if you're a homeschooler and you want to be in the public school system in Mississippi, you can do that. You can actually, the Prentiss County Schools has an online high school. So if you're a homeschool parent and you want your child to be in a public school, you can do that through Prentiss County School. They have computers and cameras in the classroom. You sit through the normal course of day. So a lot of parents, I've encouraged parents to look at that, and some parents are having a lot of success with that because it takes the burden off the testing and all the requirements and documentation off of the parents, and it's back on the student when they're going to school and they're taking their regular test online. So that's something that's being offered in Prentiss County.
And I don't know exactly how it works in some counties in Mississippi, but I know in Ohio that homeschooled children are also eligible to participate in extracurricular activities in the public school system, which allows the kids the opportunity to be socialized.
Yeah, I've heard of the, I think they refer to it as the Tim Tebow law in Florida. We don't have that here in Mississippi at this time.
State Senator Chad McMahan, thank you so much for your time. It was nice meeting you.
Scott, nice to meet you, and I extend an invitation to you to come to the Capitol one day this week, and I'll buy you lunch.
Well, I'm up here in Ohio. It's a long drive, but I'll be back in Mississippi soon, and I'll have to take you up on that.
That lunch will be worth it. Let me know.
Need some good Mississippi catfish. Thank you, sir. College basketball regular season winding down and tournament time right around the corner. Sports Talk Mississippi will be live at the Sportsbook inside Golden Moon Casino at Pearl River Resort next Monday, 1 week from tonight, to kick off the postseason. You can learn about everything happening from golf and gaming to live events and great dining. PearlRiverResort.com. More on crypto, the strategic reserve, what's happening with Bitcoin, and some of the other meme coins for one of my favorite experts. Next, Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands, Super Talk, Mississippi.
I studied in cartoons, radio, music, TV, movies, magazine.
All right, now to the important stuff.
Your VIP pass to hear what the most influential Mississippians are talking about.
This is very important.
Huge news. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
I can't help but notice Lance started the morning with some nice, easy blues, and we've gradually progressed into some harder rock throughout the morning.
Got to
Good
jam
way
it
to
out.
keep going. Yeah, after the loss of an hour's sleep over the weekend.
Well, and
This
it's
is
money
Mornings
talks
with-
too, so we're giving our next guest.
That makes sense too. I didn't even put that tie in together. Mornings with Richard Cross. Richard is on vacation this week. My name's Scott Sands. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media, the Scott Sands Show on Facebook. C-Spire text line is open at 601-879-4395. Just did a quick look at the markets a few minutes after the opening bell, and we are red again. Looks like the Dow and NASDAQ are both down about 400, S&P off 87, and the Russell down a little bit as well. But I do see some green candles coming up, so we'll keep an eye on that, I'm sure, throughout the day. On Friday, President Trump signed his executive order to create a crypto strategic reserve. And I'm curious what this all means. I know just enough about crypto to get me in trouble. That's why I called on an expert, Natalie Brunell, host of Coin Stories, the podcast, and also TalkingBitcoin.com, is joining me. Natalie, it's great to have you on. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Let's just kind of start with the basics. What is Bitcoin? How did it start? Why are people putting money into this?
Bitcoin is the hardest, scarcest asset that exists. It's the best engineered form of money. It has a finite cap of 21 million coins, and it's an open source protocol that is completely decentralized. And so far, it's the best performing asset of the last decade. So to me, I see it as a savings technology, the best way to take the money I earn and save it in something that can't be manipulated or inflated. And I'm really excited that so many people are now paying attention to Bitcoin because of what the White House is doing.
Yeah, I'm paying attention to it a little bit too late. I heard about it. I'm kind of a tech guy. I heard about it when it was in the hundreds of dollars and just didn't trust it. I didn't know enough about it at the time. Could have bought it then. Could have bought at $10, $15, $20,000. And I thought, well, I'm not sure I want to put $20K into, or even buy a fraction of it into something that I can't hold in my hand. It's not currency. It's not gold. It's not silver. It's not even a stock certificate. It made me sketchy. Now I have a serious FOMO. I fear of missing out on what's happening.
Well, I can relate. I mean, everyone who hears about Bitcoin for the first time dismisses it. They're skeptical. I totally understand. I was there as well. And the longer that you study this asset and study the history of the monetary system, you start to gain more and more conviction, and your percentage of how much you hold in terms of your portfolio begins to increase. So it takes us all a little bit of time, but there are so many people who have made 180s and now are big believers in Bitcoin.
So as Bitcoin became successful and grew, other coins were created, Doge and Shiba, and I mean there are literally thousands of coins now that are doing well, and some people are making money. Some have had their rug pulled from them, but Now, how do you know which ones are legitimate?
Well, I like to make a clear distinction between Bitcoin and crypto because Bitcoin is the only one that has no issuer. It's an asset with no issuer. It is a true commodity, and it is truly decentralized. Everything else involves a lot more risk, in my opinion. I think it's a lot more speculative. They reflect digital equities much more than digital commodities. And so I think that there still needs to be a little bit more clarity with regards to how to really evaluate these different assets. Are they digital securities? What defines a utility token? And I think this administration is moving forward to take steps to give us some sort of a framework. But again, I only invest in Bitcoin because to me, it's actually the most conservative investment that I can make.
TalkingBitcoin.com is her website. Host of Coin Stories, the podcast, Natalie Brunell. So the Crypto Strategic Reserve, this should give it even more legitimacy.
Yes. Well, in the spirit of the Trump administration, auditing everything and accounting for every dollar, I think it was time to audit our Bitcoin as well. The U.S. holds around 200,000 Bitcoin from forfeitures and seizures. So it's really only logical, right, that we decide how to handle those assets strategically. And I think Trump made a very smart move by choosing not to sell more Bitcoin. We've already missed out on massive gains by selling it in the past. So this order not only pledges to hold the Bitcoin that we have, but it also says that the government is going to examine how it might acquire more Bitcoin through revenue neutral strategies. And I've got a few ideas on how to make that happen if you want to talk about that. But what I thought was remarkable is that the order highlighted Bitcoin scarcity, that with only 21 million coins, it's a good idea for the U.S. to be among the first nations to create a reserve like this. And then separately, there's a digital asset stockpile, which consists of other tokens also acquired through forfeitures, but the government said it can sell those assets. So that's interesting because the White House is effectively saying, hey, don't sell your Bitcoin, but it's not saying that about any other cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and it's interesting because what I was expecting from this, and I think many people may have been as well, is that the presidential order would be to buy Bitcoin. But that's not the plan necessarily right away. And with the scarcity, there was some talk that might drive the price of Bitcoin up. But it seems like the president's going to be looking for other ways to acquire the Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of investors were disappointed that we're not going to be going out there and printing money to buy Bitcoin. But I do think that Bitcoin can be acquired through revenue neutral ways. I mean, we can sell buildings that no one uses and invest the proceeds in Bitcoin. There's talk of revaluing the gold on our balance sheet to reflect today's prices. And so with some simple accounting, use that to buy Bitcoin. We can say, hey, no capital gains tax if you pay your federal taxes in Bitcoin. And then once we have Bitcoin, I mean, we can get very creative. We could issue credit mixed with Bitcoin. We could issue bonds that are backed by Bitcoin. I mean, there's so many ways that I think Bitcoin will eventually be integrated into the financial system, but we're just not there yet.
If the government or any investor is not going to sell the Bitcoin, it's really unrecognized gains at that point, correct? Because you're never really taking the profit out.
Sure, but it's not any different from other assets that people hold, right? The real estate that they borrow against, the gold that's on our balance sheet right now, even equities. A lot of times people hold and then sometimes use that as pristine collateral, which we really see. Bitcoiners feel very strongly that in the future, Bitcoin will serve as the bedrock for the global economy and be used as pristine collateral and as really digital capital.
There are some people, I know that there are stories from the early days of Bitcoin where you could buy a pizza with Bitcoin, and that pizza today would cost you $100,000 because of the increase in the value of Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin being used more and more transactionally? Is that a smart thing to do?
It is being used as a medium of exchange, but here in the West, where we have our traditional 60-40 portfolio, most people are choosing to save in Bitcoin. They spend their fiat, which is depreciating and consistently getting debased, and they save in Bitcoin. Now, if you zoom out and look globally, there are a lot of places where Bitcoin is being used as a payment rail, as a tool to subvert oppressive governments, as a tool for human rights. It is allowing people in developing nations to connect to the global economy and earn Bitcoin and empower themselves economically. And that's one of the most inspiring aspects of Bitcoin because it is available to 8 billion people. And so the total addressable market is really larger than any other asset that exists. And it's empowering a lot of people to be able to save for the very first time and to be able to engage with one another in a way that's free without intermediaries and counterparty risk the way our current financial system is set up.
So address the risks for us, because it is decentralized. Is there a risk? Obviously, it could go down in value, but what's the safety net? What's protecting it? Could Bitcoin go away tomorrow?
Well, I would say that once you reach a $2 trillion market cap, it's very difficult for an asset to suddenly disappear. It's an open source protocol. That question to me sounds like, well, what if the internet went away tomorrow? It's very, very difficult once a network is sufficiently distributed like Bitcoin to get rid of it everywhere all at once. So even if there are countries that say decide to have more authoritarian approaches to Bitcoin, or they want to shut down Bitcoin, you can't do that at the same time everywhere around the world, because it literally just relies on being able to hook up to the internet. So as long as there's the ability for us to connect electronically, then Bitcoin will exist. And that's one of the most empowering ways, because if you think of the internet, like Bitcoin is the internet of money. The internet has changed how we communicate, how we interact in terms of our economy. We buy most things online, and Bitcoin's going to allow us to send value across the world in a much more frictionless way than our current system right now.
And that's why I could talk to you all day about this. I've got so many questions, and the fear that I've missed out on this. I've subscribed to the podcast. It's Coin Stories. Natalie Brunell, talkingbitcoin.com. Quickly, I've got less than a minute here, Natalie. Bitcoin's dropped in value by about 25%, $30,000 in the last couple of months. Any quick insight onto what's happening?
Well, there are always so many factors impacting Bitcoin's short-term price. I mean, what you said with the reserve, some investors were hoping for Trump to announce a big buying spree. That didn't happen. But the bigger story, I think, is just all the uncertainty when you look at the macro and geopolitical landscape. And right now, Bitcoin, unfortunately, still trades alongside a lot of risk-on assets because people just don't understand it. And we have to remember that Bitcoin, again, is in its earliest days as a global macro asset. Its market cap is only $2 trillion. It's highly liquid, trades 24/7. So it does feel the waves of market tensions much more aggressively than the larger asset classes. But remember, despite Bitcoin's volatility, long-term holders have outperformed pretty much every traditional investment by holding Bitcoin, including real estate, bonds, the S&P 500. So don't be scared by the volatility.
Natalie Brunell, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. TalkingBitcoin.com.
From the Venom 3.
Wake up, get up, and start your day right with Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Woke up this morning.
Without an hour of sleep. It is National Napping Day, as we said earlier, and I think that's what I'm going to do as soon as I get a chance.
I'm bringing you down with a little reggae myelitis, Peter Tosh.
That's fine. I'm going to go grab some coffee after this. We made it through day one, filling in for Richard Cross, who's on vacation this week. My name is Scott Sands. Cat didn't jump into the screen or knock anything over or unplug the show, so I'll consider that a win. I'm not going to guarantee that Tiger, the cat's not going to make an appearance here in the home studio in Ohio at some point during this week, but day one, success. Appreciate you, Lance and Alex and Will, everybody for helping out and for inviting me on the air on Super Talk Mississippi. Did see a text on the C Spire text line that says, I don't get Bitcoin and that interview didn't help. It appears they are creating something out of thin air and claiming it as value. Where does the money come from? And I think his name was Mose.
Mose, yeah.
The text. That's the problem I've got with this as well, is I don't know. It has value because people who are putting money into it say it has value. It is the best understanding that I have, and that's why it's not like I've got a lot of money to throw around, but I've dabbled in the Dogecoin and I dabbled in Shiba. But we're talking about tens and twenties of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars to speculate if it catches on. You know, like I bought like $20 in Doge early on because I missed out on Bitcoin, and it shot up, and I turned that $20 into like $50. For me, that's a big win. It's like putting a $5 bet on a 10-leg parlay. If it pays off, great. You're out $5. You're out $5. But the whole Bitcoin, I see how it's increasing in value because more people are giving it attention. But then you have other coins come in, the meme coins of the world, like the Hawk-Tuah coin, that I think undermines the faith and security that you might get from putting money into Bitcoin. I mean, I even put money in the Trump meme coin that came out. Remember when Trump announced his meme coin? I was able to get into that at about $1.50. And again, I'm talking about I'm willing to risk $30 or $40 on this. Let me see what happens. And it shot up to 70. So I made some money and then got out as quickly as I could because I know how these meme coins work.
Well, so you're telling me that you did not jump in on Kanye's?
I've not jumped in on the Ye
and waded
coin.
into the Kanye coin yet. I think that's part of what the confusion is, though. In some ways, is the fact that you have all these competing coins, and you got people like Kanye West who have a coin.
Yeah,
you're like, man, why would I put my money in that? So you have a lot of that.
Thousands of. There's a difference between meme coins like the Ye coin or the Hawk-Tuah coin and Bitcoin, which does have more legitimacy. And I'm not the expert to be able to explain
what
that legitimacy is.
Right, the money side, when you go, where's the value come from? Well, there's perceived scarcity, perceived strength, and there's perceived anonymity. So there's value in that. And at the other side of the equation, you also have somebody in something had to mine it. Something had to create it. Energy, output, people, all of those things, that equals some value there. Hard work goes into something, and it has value. So it's not your traditional way of looking at money, but it is a different style of money that has come about from, I would say one of the main things was anonymity. People wanted to have the ability to do things on the internet without being tracked. And so
without the government knowing where it is. And I think there's some value in that. Just the black market and illegal activity.
But the other side, the risk is, as she said, your biggest risk is the internet. Power. If your power goes out for any extended period of time, you've kind of stuck there. But
or if you have it on a thumb drive, if your wallet
and it gets thrown into a dumpster,
drive, right? We see stories about that all the time. So there's risk in any investment. I mean, but you can't put cash under your mattress for your entire life too. You have to be able to take some risks to.
Well, yeah, the cash won't be worth a whole lot in a little while if you leave it there for too long.
And again, let me point this out. Don't take investment advice from me. I think that goes without saying, but I feel the need to make it crystal clear.
You got to have a disclaimer there, right?
Not to take investment advice from me.
The SEC hollering at you.
Yeah. Congressman Mike Ezell will join us tomorrow. Also, author Brad Meltzer, Douglas Carswell from the Mississippi Center for Public Policy. Later this week, Ken Block from the band Sister Hazel will join us on Wednesday. They've got a concert in Biloxi. Starla Brown from Americans for Prosperity, and hopefully a few surprise guests joining us as well. I'm working with some of my contacts to see who we can get on. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. I will go through the C Spire text line and reply to some messages, since every time I had it pulled up in here, it made that awful noise. So I apologize for that. You can also find me on X at Scott Sands Media, The Scott Sands Show on Facebook. And I will be back here tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Lance, again, thank you, and Alex and Will and everybody at SuperTalk Mississippi. Find the podcasts at SuperTalk FM. Have a great Monday. Hope you're not too tired.
Dark clouds rising, surely sign of rain. Get your grip on it, don't little eyes of Jane. I got a pig at home in a pig, corn to feed him on. All I need is a pretty little girl, feed him wet and gone. Good and brown, when you get them biscuits, bake around a band be found. I got a pig at home with me, corn feed him on. All I need is for a little girl, feed wet and gone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.